Hey everybody, it is Colin Nitro for Nitro Maniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited coming at you today with another Nitro Steak, and in my ongoing quest to diversify the content here on this channel, not provide one promotion exclusively, but kind of just bounce around and everything, we actually had a premiere over the past week. I finally got a chance over the weekend to sit down and watch this, but the actual air date for this program was Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. It was the premiere of NWA / UWN Primetime Live. Yes, the partnership between the National Wrestling Alliance, Billy Corgan's National Wrestling Alliance, and Dave Marquez United Wrestling Network. Yes, they're basically the championship wrestling from wherever guys that you tune in and see every week on different American superstations on your cable package and that stuff. Championship wrestling from Hollywood, championship wrestling from Arizona, of that ilk, basically. Well, they're partnered together. See what had happened that's been kind of a drastic change is, well, what happened with NWA Power and that stuff? Well, that was all the creative genius and creative direction of Dave Lagana. Dave Lagana is no longer with the NWA as he was singled out for alleged misgivings and that such during the Speaking Out movement over the past summer or so. So Lagana's out. In goes Marquez and Corgan as basically the new creative genius of the NWA, or the creative minds between the NWA. And this was the start. This was the brand new debut of their weekly pay-per-view series. Yes, they're taking a page from NWA TNA in the early 2000s and doing a weekly pay-per-view. Mixed feelings on that. I think that, I'll get into the pilot and what I thought of the pilot, kind of blow by blow here and match by match, and I'll let you know my total feelings of the whole thing at the very end. So here's my take on the pilot for NWA UWN Primetime Live. And the show opens with Dave Marquez welcoming us to NWA UWN Primetime Live. Chris Dickinson interrupts, a big name in the indies in the States, says everyone will know who he is by the end of the program tonight, and couldn't tell the rest of the promo because the signal dropped a few times. I think part of it was Shaw, and part of it was, Shaw being my cable provider here. Yes, I did watch this pay-per-view on traditional cable, and it was also available on Fight. It dropped a couple of times even on traditional cable. Apparently there was issues with the show via Fight TV. I saw some tweets about it on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Like I said, I watched via traditional pay-per-view and a PVR. Kind of cool to see that this actually got clearance to air on pay-per-view in Canada. The past two NWA pay-per-views, Into the Fire and Hard Times, they were Fight TV exclusives, so we didn't see them at all on our cable packages on television or anything like that. So it was pretty cool to see this actually show up. The asking price, though, for a weekly pay-per-view and the show quality, it being what it is right now, is still a little steep. They were asking $12.99 Canadian to watch this, and next week I imagine it'll be the same price, $12.99, and so on and so forth. Where it is in the States and elsewhere, it's $7.99. Yeah, again, a little bit steep considering the quality and the unfamiliarity with some of the UWN stars that a lot of the mainstream public that had followed NWA through Power and that stuff will see. And also, I don't think that this show really deviated much from NWA Power at all. In fact, I would even rank NWA Power a little bit better than this show, but we'll go through this and see what happens. So, the show opens with a West Coast Pro Wrestling Championship match. The challenger, EJ Sparks, taking on the champion, Hammerstone. And Joe Galli is back with UWN's announced team for this. It's a three-man booth. Well, 2 men, 1 woman, but the three-man booth. I'll grab the names later on. Yes, I have the names written down. They're just farther in my notes here. Matches are shot on a soundstage. Yes, Thunder Studios. No crowd, but a very Impact similar type ring and setting. Yes, it's almost as if you're watching Impact on Access TV or something. With just the setup that they have with the ramp, and it's a very professional looking setup. lit a little bit and whatever. So it's kind of but it lacks the uniqueness of NWA Power of the studio wrestling environment. It kind of feels like they've ripped off Impact a little bit here with this, which is kind of, I'm not sure. West Coast Pro Wrestling, of course, one of the mini indies under the UWN banner. Hammerstone is impressive. His spinal countdown maneuver is something to see. Yes, this is the first time I had a chance to sit down and watch Hammerstone in a match. Haven't had the chance to see him work at all, and I was very impressed by it. Anyways, Hammerstone retains with the Nightmare Pendulum. 1, 2, 3, solid opener. Thought that Hammerstone looked great, about 11 minutes in length. Yes, he was a shining star on his pilot, for sure, was this opening contest, and it was all about Hammerstone, man, and just building him up. He's going to be a great power heel for UWN and maybe NWA going forward. Very excited to see him jump on board. Alyssa Mariano and Todd Kenley represent the UWN side of commentary. They sound good, but it still sounds like a third-string college sports or a... almost like an arena football type broadcast a little bit on like a local affiliate or something. Joe Galley though still sounds great. I think Galley is one of the untapped, like, major promotion will scoop him up one day, whether it's AEW or WWE for something. He's got a great call to him and great pacing, and he's got the pacing for pro wrestling with it. The other two, need work, but we'll see them later on. See what happens. The panel runs down the card, including Mike Bennett and Nick Aldis for the NWA title. Clint Armstrong is the backstage reporter for UWN, and he interviews Nick Aldis, says he has nothing to say, 700 plus days as champ, and 2 hungry men going for the belt tonight. I love this promo. This was one of the highlights of the show for me. It was one of the great promos. Another undercard match was Jordan Clearwater taking on Will All Day. Heard about Clearwater through Twitter. He's from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and All Day, he's playing the cocky heel here. He grabs the mic and says that he is main event bound, so that's going to be a character trait for him going forward. All Day with an impressive shooting star, but only lands 2. I love his smack talk. He needs a little bit more confidence as a heel, but I think that'll develop with more primetime ring time and that stuff. Pardon the pun. Clearwater with a beautiful bulldog for 2, and in the finish, All Day hits a beautiful plancha to the outside, but gets kind of cocky on a re-entry back into the ring, but allows, for the third time in this match, Jordan Clearwater to hit the Midas touch. It's basically a running Yakuza boot to All Day, and lands the 1, 2, 3. So, and then that one there, those are 2 young stars that UWN and NWA fans will be, I think, very happy to see their progression about 3 or 4 years or so. I think that we're seeing bare bones with them here now at this point, but watch for those kids. They're going to be good. And yeah, Clearwater reminds me of Barry Windham, man. He's a big, tall, lanky, blonde kid. He just throws power moves out of nowhere. Pretty cool to see. A women's match up next with Heather Monroe, accompanied to the ring by Halston Body, versus Camille. Yes, one of the higher booked and promoted matches on this thing. When it was announced last month, it was this match and the NWA title match between Bennett and Aldis that really grabbed most of the attention for this. Camille had a huge push starting on NWA Power prior to the hiatus, and Monroe, after the bell rings, Camille basically is in control of this thing, up until the point where Monroe turns the tables after an extended Camille offensive by shoving Camille into the ring post, and she starts, selling the shoulder. The code breaker attempt by Monroe only nets 2. Camille looks to lock in a torture rack, but no dice. Her shoulder is too hurt, and she drops Monroe to the apron. A backstabber attempt after the distraction by Body on the outside by Monroe, but Camille powers out of it and lands the spear for the 1, 2, 3 for the finish. And it seems like they're building it up for a Camille Thunder Rosa face-off is something that they're working towards, and more on Thunder Rosa appearing on this. She's actually going to be on this show this coming week. So stay tuned to the notes here. Before we found out about that, though, Dave Marquez is with Eli Drakes. He has a buddy of his, Watts, next week. Matchup of friends next week. It's one of the higher anticipated and shall we say, higher promoted matches for next week's NWA UWN card. So, that's going to be that's one of the matches that they're hanging their hat on at least. Also next week, Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly. That's what I was talking about there. Rosa makes her return to NWA television after being on AEW for the past few weeks or so. Non-title match, but it's a busy schedule for Thunder Rosa, the NWA champion. So we'll see what happens here with this. We then head back to the back, and Dave Marquez is with Dan Joseph, the UWN TV champion. He has Levi Shapiro tonight. Says he's keeping the championship forever in this one. Joseph the face and Shapiro the heel off of this. Tag team match up next. The Wolf Zaddies taking on the Tribe. These are two UWN stalwart teams. Navajo Warrior and Hawaiian Lion make up the Tribe. And Matthew Tito and Jay Cabrera are the Wolf Zaddies. Both teams look like they walked out of early 90s WCW. I'll correct that. How about 1990 WCW? This is kind of a snoozy, prodding affair. The match kind of breaks down into a Texas Tornado, but still a tag match, and then a time limit draw, and both teams brawl to the back. I wasn't wowed by this at all. Kind of reminded me of the Dawson squash match from the NWA Power premiere from about a year ago or so. So if that's the first tag team match we see under this branch of NWA programming and that stuff, then it's par for the course. It's just the first tag match we see isn't very impressive, but they get better along the way. So we head to the back, and Marquez is standing by with Mike Bennett, the challenger for the NWA title, on his card. Mike will have his wife, Maria Canales, in his corner. Says that his life will change if he walks out with the NWA title. A great promo here as well. Both promos for the championship match tonight were amazing. It was great. A preview for next week's show, where we got Ray Rosas defending the UWN Hollywood Heritage title. I have to do some Googling on all the UWN titles. I think there's quite a bit actually to their tree, which is weird. So just gotta take a look and see exactly what they all have. The next match, Jordan Cruz taking on the aforementioned Chris Dickinson. This is a hot start, as I think this will be a showcase for Dickinson here, and it was. He commandeers a mic at ringside and says that he wants better competition after laying out Cruz on the rampway. Cruz, though, fights his way back into the ring and actually gives Dickinson a competitive match. But Dickinson lands a half crab. But Cruz, though, fights back and fights out of the early match attempt and hits his finisher, the Big Easy, which is a leg lariat, kind of Alex Wright style a little bit, but no pin off of that one. But the finish for this one, a running head kick and a DVD lands to the 1-2-3 for Dickinson. Get another promo for next week's show, and from the LA Dojo of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Carl Fredericks is in action, so that's a big get for them for sure. As Fredericks, we've mentioned his name before on the channel, is actually a really decent competitor and a decent person to watch for sure. United TV title match. Yes, the United Wrestling Network television title is on the line. Dan Joseph, the champion, taking on Levi Shapiro with his manager, kind of a heel Paul Jones looking character by the name of Howdy Price. And Shapiro is sporting a black glove. Allegedly that glove is loaded, and he is a master of the Von Erich Iron Claw. The match, though, is weird. It's short, and there's kind of a botch with a free count as Joseph lands a lariat in the corner, and the ref hesitates on the 1-2-3. They brawl to the back, and Price steals the belt. Again, it was kind of a train wreck, but, it accomplished what it needed to accomplish. I didn't get it. This was at this point where I thought that the pay-per-view was 2 hours long, because it was banked for 2 hours, but it only ran for 90 minutes, so I think these are 90-minute specials going forward. It just was confusing as hell. And then it's main event time. The NWA World Heavyweight title is on the line. Mike Bennett with Maria Canales in his corner taking on the champion, Nick Aldis. No music for Aldis. Was it a production botch? I know that Bennett waited a long time in the ring while the announcers kind of stalled and said it was it's the psychological advantage and that stuff and whatever, and then Aldis just stomped to the ring. So I think they had a music botch. They had his music for the end, though. Spoiler alert off of that one. But the match starts hot. Bennett is in control with the chops. Ref gets cut in half, though, by a Bennett spear attempt, and Aldis sidesteps the spear. Yeah, so the ref is laid out fairly early in this one, probably about 2.5 minutes in. Aldis hits a tombstone on Bennett on the ramp, and Bennett is out. And this leads to some pretty cool ringside banter between Maria Kanellis and Nick Aldis. But Camille, who is the insurance policy, don't forget the strictly business thing in NWA, that whole faction, wasn't really enforced in this program, but the partnership between Camille and Nick Aldis was. Camille walks out to neutralize Maria. However, that allows Bennett to kind of fire up and land a huge crossbody off of the ramp onto the floor. And a new ref arrives. They call for the bell to get going again. The bell had already rang, but the match continues. A tombstone flying elbow combination by Aldis only nets 2. Very Dynamite Kid-esque, as was mentioned on the broadcast. Bennett hits the spear for only 2. And then all of a sudden, Bennett hits off of that his finisher, the Hail Mary pile driver. But that only nets a 2 count as well. Bennett thinks about using the belt as an equalizer. The globe for the NWA 10 pounds of gold, that belt falls off. The amount of time that passes allows Aldis to hit the Kingsland Cloverleaf, which is his submission finisher, and Bennett passes out in the Cloverleaf, and Aldis retains the belt. Post-match, respect shown by both, and they shake hands, and the show goes off right at the 90-minute mark, goes off the air. So, yeah, kind of feel a little cheated, kind of feel a little jaded off of this one, folks, because they had on the cable company guide and that stuff, it listed for a 2-hour show. It was only 90 minutes. There were some production botches off the top, not as much as Fight TV apparently had, and for the price that you're paying for it, compared to what our American counterparts and American fans are, and that's up to $12.99 versus the $7.99. It's kind of noticeable when stuff like that does happen, especially up here. It is very cool though that it's cleared cable company clearance up here in Canada though to air on Tuesday nights, which was pretty neat. The match selection for this opening show, I think, is a little bit suspect as well, considering that next week you'll have Thunder Rosa and Priscilla Kelly. You'll have Eli Drake in action. Carl Fredericks will be in action as well. And, you know, that's the whole thing. I kind of feel that you could have brought those folks in for this week 1 thing and moved a lot of the matches off of this one for week 2, i.e., I mean, I would have kept the unified title match. I don't know what happened there. I think that one probably got cut for time. If you're selling the pay-per-view on a world heavyweight title match, keep that as well. Dickinson you want to keep because you're showcasing him, and I would keep Hammerstone and the West Coast Pro Wrestling title match as well, because that was another showcase match as well. Unfortunately, I really like Clearwater and All Day. I thought that was a good match, but I would have moved that to week 2. Monroe and Camille is something that you were promoting for about a month or so, you know, keep that as well. The tag team match, I would have guessed that, and I would have brought in either Drake and Watts for that one, or I would have brought in the Rosa Priscilla Kelly match for that one as well, because that in itself just felt like the show took a giant blow at that point. So you want to kind of keep it high intensity, and with no crowd either, it's harder. So I'll give the entire show a 6 out of 10 for week 1. I thought, again, the main event was good. I thought that Camille and Monroe put on a great match. You know, the main event is match of the night, but that's not saying much. I thought it was a rather routine match for both of them. I've seen both men have better matches, both Bennett and Aldis. So, unfortunately, their first meeting is kind of meh there. And, you know, a real dark horse one. That Clearwater and All Day match was actually really good for a couple of prospects that people will be watching for years to come. So that was fun, and that'll be something to maybe watch the progression on these two guys as the months and years go forward, I should say. Will I order next week's show? That's the question. Chances are probably not, unfortunately. I think that, again, the $12.99 asking price per week and the bi-weekly model just isn't sustainable, especially with the current situation going on and that stuff. I think that it's kind of wishful thinking at this point. Although next week's show does seem like it's going to be a little bit more loaded on that, and we'll see what happens going forward. But as it stands right now, don't have any plans on ordering it. I wanted to see what the pilot looks like and, of course, review the pilot for you guys. So anyways, we'll see what happens. And I hope that the NWA returns to power and returns to YouTube sooner rather than later off of this. I don't really care much for this direction that they're going with the weekly pay-per-view. Seems fair? All right. Later days, happy wrestling watching, folks. I'm Kellen Nitro. We'll talk to you next time on Nitro Maniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. Take care.